Amazing discovery. Soldier and K9 expose hidden truth behind a little girl's touching whisper. Jack Reynolds stood in the quiet hallway of Cedar Valley Elementary, the fading colors of childhood art lining the walls around him. The echoes of his past lurked, the distant memories of gunfire intertwining with the laughter of children. He had held the weight of survival in combat, now drowning in the mundane. Yet here, with Luna, his loyal Belgian Malinois by his side, he fostered moments that felt somewhat alive and purposeful. But when Mia, the small girl with the large doe eyes, stepped into his life, everything shifted. Her voice, a frightened whisper threaded with hope, pricked at the layers of lost warmth inside Jack. "Mr. Reynolds, what if my mom can't find a job?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. There it was, the first tremor of moral conflict, holding in Jack a question he didn't want to acknowledge. What could he really do? Days turned to weeks, and Mia's playful inquiries about the K9 training sessions revealed the cracks in her young heart. Jack's instinct was to protect, it flickered underneath like the remnants of his soldier spirit. He saw too much of himself in her, a lost soul searching for answers in a harsh world. He turned to his work and the bond with Luna, trying to drown out the quiet sorrow creeping in, but there was no escaping the reality that accompanied the pursuit of every heartbeat in this town. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment Mia didn't show up for school sent a shockwave through Jack. The vibrant chatter of kids turned to a haunting silence as dread seeped in. Panic surged through him, instinct, that battle-trained warrior sense, compelled him to act. He and Luna worked as a unit, searching neighborhoods, confronting fear in shadows both seen and unseen. As they ran their course, he discovered a community riddled with secrets, debt, dismissiveness, neglect. A swirling mess determined to suffocate those like Mia. Every face he encountered held stories of pain, and he felt a sudden, heavy burden. Was he prepared to wade through this chaos? Faces that had once registered as mere neighbors now loomed large, and Jack's once secure understanding of right and wrong blurred. The internal fight raged like a storm within, shadows of self-doubt encroaching. What did it mean to truly protect? To belong? Could he confront the discomfort of probing into lives shattered by indifference? A sinking realization hit him: Mia's plight was just a microcosm of the systemic failures drowning so many here. Doomed whispers echoed through the alleyways of his mind. What if he couldn't get through to those who had the power? What if Mia was just another faded memory down this lonely road? The stakes felt insurmountable, heavy, yet there was that flicker of determination still. She deserved more than yesterday's despair. As tensions began to rise in the town and the shadows around Mia's disappearance deepened, all Jack could think was this was turning into a fight not just for a little girl but for everyone like her, against a tide that wanted to erase their stories. The choices ahead haunted him, awashing his mind like gunfire ricocheting through a battlefield, wondering who would step forward to challenge it. And as he navigated this darkness, Jack stood on that crumbling line, his purpose colliding with his own unresolved past, ready to plunge deeper into the unknown. The next morning dawned heavy with uncertainty as Jack stood at the front door, staring blankly out at the street where Mia had last been seen. Luna nudged his leg, her steady presence grounding him. The dog's acute instinct seemed to resonate with Jack's own unease. Something beyond mere search and rescue tossed in Jack's gut. He had tasted chaos, the unpredictability of war, and here he was faced with an equal battlefield, the vulnerability of a child ensnared in an indifferent world. Each passing moment pushed the anxiety deeper into his chest, igniting a resolve to act. He made a decision: if the authorities wouldn't take action swiftly enough, he would need to delve further into the hidden narratives of Cedar Valley. Their lives intertwined meant something, and he would not abandon them, not like he felt he had abandoned the warriors that fell beside him. This battle demanded a different sort of bravery, a foray into vulnerability that pierced through old armor. Jack took a step forward, calling out to the few neighbors he knew, hoping for leads. His desperation took on a new form, one where he gently probed their realities, unnoticed struggles that masked the fabric of their lives. But as he spoke, many of them shifted uncomfortably. The tacit reluctance to engage gnawed at him, amplifying his growing frustration. "She's our daughter, too," came a voice, sharp from the side. Jack turned to see Mrs. Hargrove, an elderly woman from down the block, her face drawn tight. "You think you can just gallivant around and fix this for us? We're all in this together, young man, but no one gives a damn unless it's their own." Her words stung but illuminated an unyielding truth: they had grown accustomed to disregarding each other's pain. It wasn't a pleasant realization, yet it served fuel for Jack's fire. He needed to craft a different, more inclusive narrative where he wasn't just the outsider playing hero. This was about collaboration. And for that, he needed to abandon his soldier mentality of Lone Ranger tactics. Treading into uncharted territory, Jack organized a small meeting at the park later that evening, hoping the darkening sky might draw more people in. As the words escaped his lips, he felt the weight of his own doubts threatening to choke him. What if they mocked him? What if they didn't show? But there was a flicker of hope each time he glanced at Luna, reflecting the fierce loyalty that threaded through him. Maybe this was exactly what the community needed, a nudge to lean on each other rather than retreat. The gathering evolved into a faltering collection of hesitant voices. At first, responses fell flat. People didn't want to reveal their struggles. But Jack persisted, recounting Mia's story tenderly, invoking the kind of nurturing that only a parent could provide. Further, he discussed the growing shadows that painted their neighborhood, urging them to share their fears, their losses. To his astonishment, stories began to emerge of struggling families, isolation, loss, all woven together. Suddenly, evenings filled with laughter became tinged with pain. Tears welled, honest pain spilled, and the unity felt almost palpable, standing in stark contrast to the isolation that had suffocated them before. As he embraced the unexpected, he realized the battle was not only for Mia's return but for the community's revival. In breaking bread together, sharing fear and tears, they were reconfiguring the fabric of their existence. Jack stood taller, inhaling the weightiness of discomfort mixed with budding hope. Change was afoot, awakening a new sense of belonging that had long lain dormant. But with this progress came a related burden. He now had a role, tied to accountability, and the realities of hidden struggles demanded more from him than ever before. But somewhere, deep within him, questions pulsed: had he ventured too far into their lives, risking his fragile position as an outsider? Or could he truly become a linchpin for healing? As the sun fell low, illuminating the hopeful faces around him, Jack sensed lurking shadows unexplored in the gathering darkness, a challenge waiting at the edge of this new path. The real test loomed ahead, whispering of deeper connections within the labyrinth of pain yet to be uncovered. And in the heart of this intense human fabric lay the discovery that it wasn't just about saving Mia anymore. It had become about facing the deeper truths entwined in their shared lives. The night deepened, and as doubts crept back into his mind, one thought blazed fiercely: Jack was ready to confront whatever truths awaited, but was Cedar Valley ready to follow him into the darkness yet unexplored? The following morning, Jack woke earlier than usual, the sunlight filtering through the blinds yet feeling more like a dim reminder of the weight that loomed over him. It pressed on him as he made his way through the kitchen, the stillness unbroken except for Luna's soft paws padding behind him. He poured himself a cup of coffee, but it was more a ritual than a necessity. His mind was burdened with the tension of the previous night. With each sip, Jack contemplated the faces of the neighbors who had shared their pains, stories that clung to his thoughts like a vine wound tightly around a tree. Their collective vulnerability shone brightly, yet he felt an unease gnawing at him. He began questioning his own sincerity. Was he merely performing an act of heroism, or was he genuinely invested in their healing? Soon after, he grabbed a notebook from the counter, a loner from his military days, and began jotting down ideas. A new plan formed within him, organic and instinctive. They needed to create a network, a way to communicate, share resources, and build trust. Instead of simply coming together when tragedy struck, he envisioned living a shared purpose, where they were joined not just by loss but also by hope. The notebook unfolded a new direction: programs to exchange skills, share food, and build friendships that extended beyond their immediate fears. He believed these connections could lead them to uncover truths hidden in the shadows, truths that might point toward Mia's whereabouts. While writing, Jack stumbled upon another thought: he could also introduce discussion groups. Setting aside preconceived notions of masculinity, vulnerability, and imperfection would empower everyone involved. He squared his shoulders at the growing sense of purpose within him. With renewed energy, Jack stepped outside, Luna forever at his heels. A walk in Cedar Valley was precisely what he needed to stabilize the frantic flurry in his mind. The air was still crisp, the early morning silence punctuated only by the soft rustle of the trees. However, his focus was drawn to something more than nature's tranquility. Jack's path led him past the Hargroves' home, where he saw Mrs. Hargrove herself watering the plants. He hesitated only a moment before approaching her. They exchanged greetings, and Jack noticed the weariness in her eyes had, in some small way, lifted since their previous encounter. "Thank you for what you did last night," she said, sincerity weaving her words. "It's not often we get the chance to behave like a community. I guess we've forgotten how to care for one another." The shift in her demeanor coaxed a small smile from him. "That's what I was hoping for," Jack replied, careful to honor the space that had been constructed between them. "It could be even more than that. What if we became accountable to each other?" In a heartbeat, Mrs. Hargrove leaned in, her interest piqued. "You have an idea?" Jack took a breath, with fervor guiding his thoughts. "I want to create groups, open spaces where we can talk, share skills, or just vent. If we keep doing this, we might discover something important. I believe we can find a way to bring Mia home if we collaborate." She considered this, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "You think that will make a difference?" Jack met her gaze firmly. "Yes, but I need your help. You've lived here longer than I have, and people trust you." Their conversation sparked a new ambition within Jack, reinvigorating his willingness to confront his own fears of rejection and inadequacy. He wanted more than to be an outsider; this was his chance to tap into latent leadership. They formulated a plan right there in the garden, each detail woven into the broader tapestry of Cedar Valley, creating a framework that could potentially bridge their gaps. As they discussed the next steps, something shifted within him, an acknowledgement that even the smallest change could spiral into something more significant. By early afternoon, their little gathering of ideas transformed into shared purpose, but that very intention ignited a greater fear within Jack. What if exposing those hidden vulnerabilities led to confrontations he wasn't prepared to face? What if some truths were too painful to confront? The lingering doubts now intertwined with his satisfaction as he walked back home. Jack's stomach nodded with anticipation. Nothing felt certain, yet the drive to uncover these buried truths surged within him, demanding attention. The stakes were higher than he'd initially confronted. This journey might unravel not only their shared plight but force him to come face to face with his own deeper challenges. Before he even entered his home, a question niggled at him: would he be ready to confront his own truths, or would he falter at the edge of discovery? Jack stood at the threshold of his home, the question bouncing around in his mind, echoing louder than the ambient sounds of Cedar Valley. He hesitated, teetering on the edge of an unknown journey. What felt like a new beginning also harbored the potential for stark confrontation. His thoughts spiraled into the realm of uncertainty, where the idea of accountability intertwined with anxiety. He shook his head, trying to dispel the heavy fog of what could go wrong. First, he needed to gather his thoughts, laying clear the framework of his vision. Setting down his coffee, Jack returned to his notebook, pages filled with hasty scrawls of encouragement and plans glimmering in a hopeful light. Yet, beneath those bright threads, a darkness lingered: his personal conflicts, his past, and, most importantly, the nagging thought of Mia. As he studied the ink stains and erased words, the ideas started to take shape, infused with the essence of his growing resolve. What if these groups were not merely spaces for discussion? What if they morphed into a sanctuary for healing, a focus group to delve into the grief that bound them? Jack's pen flew across the page, turning uncertainty into actionable steps, moments he could measure. He would approach Mrs. Hargrove again and expand their conversation, seeking more allies. He saw her as pivotal in urging others to join this venture. But the mission weighed heavy on him now, not only as an endeavor to bring Mia home, but as a personal challenge to confront his own fears of inadequacy. After a brief deliberation, he decided to step out and visit Mrs. Hargrove again. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its warm rays over the neighborhood, infusing the air with a sense of new possibility. Fueled by determination, he made his way to her home. Upon arrival, he found her tidying up the front porch. The once gentile air of their previous conversation transformed into something taut with expectation. Jack took a moment to find his words, wrestling with the rush of vulnerability creeping in. Would she still be interested? Did he have the right to ask for her help yet again? Mrs. Hargrove, he started, fidgeting with the edge of his notebook. Her attentive gaze served as an anchor, grounding him. I want to flesh out the plans we talked about. A hint of a smile broke across her face, a blooming sign of renewed engagement. Fantastic, Jack. I've been thinking about ways we can incorporate different topics outside of just Mia's situation. Exactly, he responded, a rush of relief coursing through him. I think we should focus on creative outlets. Art, cooking, storytelling, things that get people talking and relieve some pressures we carry. Mrs. Hargrove nodded thoughtfully. And every story could reveal hidden truths, right? Nothing is ever simple, especially when it comes to loss. Her words stabbed at a raw nerve. Jack was reminded of the shame and guilt he carried from his service days, feelings he had long concealed. They danced in the corners of his mind, feasted upon by the self-doubt he had developed over the years. Unintentionally, he found himself at a crossroads, either to confront this anguish openly or let it shadow his attempts at moving forward. He looked at the old woman, recognition dawning upon him. Beneath her own weariness lay a reservoir of strength he needed. Yes, I appreciate that honesty. Sharing could break these walls we've built. A pensive silence hung between them, stretching into something intimate that shifted the dynamic. He could sense the profound inner turmoil they both felt, an unspoken bond forged from shared grief. Suddenly, a loud bark splintered their moment, making both jump. Luna was bounding toward them, tail a blur of animation, breaking the bubble of seriousness. Jack chuckled, the tension lifting slightly. Animals do have a way of bringing lightness, Mrs. Hargrove said, watching the dog frolic in large arcs. We should consider activities with pets too. An emotional connection can do wonders. What do you mean? The thought intrigued Jack. Pet therapy, perhaps. It could foster connection and spark conversations people might avoid otherwise, she suggested, her voice brimming with warmth. Jack felt a weight rolling off him. Pet therapy, it was brilliantly simple yet profound. It became clear that sharing space, laughter, and stories were keys to unlocking deeper conversations, but a daunting fear continued to lurk within him. The pain he dared not address festered beneath the surface like an unopened wound. Jack took a deep breath, understanding the fragile balance playing out. He wanted this network to thrive, yet he needed to confront his unresolved wounds first. What truths lay beneath the surface, waiting for a voice? As he nodded in agreement with Mrs. Hargrove, a sudden realization hit: the journey wouldn't just be about helping others but also about dismantling the barricades around his heart. Before long, the meeting dissolved into planning, yet the unanswered questions about his own readiness still sizzled in the air. Could he fully embrace vulnerability without losing himself? Or would he falter when the moment of reckoning arrived? The deeper he delved, the more apparent the potential for profound discovery loomed. The moment approached when he must decide, will he confront his own demons or let them silence him when seeking truths bitterly hidden? The following days felt like a ticking clock for Jack. Each morning brought renewed hope, but also the weight of anticipation that sat heavy on his chest. He found himself wrestling with the impending need for vulnerability as he began to mold the initial group structure in collaboration with Mrs. Hargrove. What had begun as a mere concept now bubbled with possibility, casting a long shadow over his internal struggles. With every brainstorming session, they generated lists of topics and potential activities. Mrs. Hargrove's energy remained a balm on Jack's uneven spirit. He had never sought help from others openly, but in this burgeoning partnership, he realized he was inching toward a larger truth: his own capacity to lean on others, a notion that felt foreign yet invigorating. However, during quieter moments, doubt crept in like an unwelcome visitor. Jack often found himself spiraling inward, reflecting on conversations he'd avoided or moments of connection he had let slip through his fingers. How could he guide others in addressing their grief when he remained shackled by his own shadows? The mental tug-of-war became all-consuming, forcing him to confront his fear of failure. "Jack, I think we need to focus on what we hold back emotionally," Mrs. Hargrove remarked one afternoon, her astute eyes observing him closely. "You know yourself well enough by now. This effort requires authenticity." Her words pierced through the fog of denial clouding his thoughts. Authenticity. What an intimidating concept. Did he dare strip away the layers of self-protection he clung to? Was he ready to share the darker chapters that lurked in the recesses of his mind? In that moment of introspection, Jack recognized that these hesitations felt familiar. The same hesitance during battlefield conversations about trauma surfaced again as a stacked box of memories, sealed shut and buried deep. Could he articulate the complexities of his grief while guiding others? Would he rise to the occasion or retreat behind his carefully designed walls? Acknowledging his limitations was not a sign of weakness, he reminded himself, but rather a gateway to deeper understanding and sensitivity. This acknowledgement sowed the seeds of courage in his heart. He began crafting a list, not just of potential activities for the group but also of personal stories that he could share. The stories would serve as stepping stones to community engagement, a way for others to see they weren't alone. By painting his past with broad strokes, he hoped to invite those around him to reflect on their experiences. Surrounded by the warmth of the planning sessions, the idea took root. Each individual carried a unique narrative filled with vulnerabilities, fears, and yet, threads of resilience. In the coming days, Jack began integrating structured group activities with storytelling sessions. As he stood before the mirror one evening, preparing for a first meeting focused explicitly on sharing experiences, anxiety knotted his stomach. As he rehearsed his speech, the room around him seemed to fade. He felt the repercussions of each recollected moment weighing heavily on him. His heart raced against the stillness, conflicted between the companionable recall of memories and the tension spurred by recalling the depths of his past. How would the group react to his truth? Were they ready for his journey? The clock ticked slowly toward the meeting time, each second a reminder that the threshold between self-doubt and expression was mere moments away. Jack took one final, steadying breath before the world around him sharpened into focus. Just as he steeled himself for the confrontation with his truths, he heard a light knock on his door. The sound shattered the bubble of solitude he had cocooned himself in, and the pang of urgency surged as he realized he wasn't alone in this endeavor. What if the knock symbolized the door to his own healing? As he approached to open it, uncertainty flickered and settled inside him. Beyond that door lay the opportunity to rewrite his narrative, and beneath the fear pulsed an undercurrent of hope. The door swung open, revealing a familiar face illuminated with resolve. What awaited on the other side? Jack's heart raced with equal measures of trepidation and anticipation. The question loomed larger than ever: was this the moment that would redefine him, or simply lead to another layer of unresolved emotions? And there, at that exact intersection of present and future, the next chapter of his story begged to unfold. Jack paused at the threshold, the door slightly ajar as he took in the sight of Emily, an old friend from his military days. Her presence was a sudden jolt to his system, a reminder of the bonds forged through shared hardship and resilience. Her face radiated warmth, but the strength behind her eyes mirrored his own internal struggle. They hadn't seen each other in years, yet the connection erupted like a dormant volcano, stirring up both fond memories and buried complexities. "Jack," she said softly, stepping across the threshold. "I heard you were working on something important." "Yeah, it's a group for people dealing with grief," he replied, the words tumbling from his mouth, far from rehearsed. As he spoke, the heaviness in his chest only intensified. He felt exposed. Here was someone who knew him, and yet, she could not possibly comprehend the depths of his turmoil, the very turmoil he aimed to confront in the new venture. Emily's brow furrowed with empathy. "It sounds like you're diving into challenging territory. How are you feeling about it?" Jack hesitated, grappling with the intertwining threads of his past and the present. "Honestly, I'm scared. How do I guide others when I'm still struggling with my own grief?" "Maybe that's precisely why you should be doing it," she suggested, her confidence urging him to drop his defenses. "Your honesty and vulnerability might resonate more than you realize. You're not just leading, you're also sharing your journey." Her words pricked at something in Jack, pushing through layers of hesitation he hadn't fully acknowledged. Still, he felt a tightness in his throat. What could a soldier like him offer in a place echoing with pain and loss? Would his past experiences enhance healing, or would they expose him further to the pain he tried so hard to manage? "I wish it were that simple," he said, exhaling a slow breath. "It feels like I'm standing at the edge of something profound, but fear keeps pulling me back. What if I fail them or myself?" "Then you learn," Emily answered without skipping a beat. "That's always what we do. We fall, get back up, and share what we've learned. Besides, you're not alone in this." Her inviting demeanor gave him something he hadn't expected, a touch of comfort blended with renewed courage. Her understanding felt like a lifeline, stirring within him the impulse to forge ahead, even despite the uncertainty. As they spoke, Jack began to grasp the layers of support surrounding him, not just from Emily but also in the planning he undertook with Mrs. Hargrove. Perhaps opening up in this new light could promote not only his personal growth but also that of others who faced similar darkness. He realized this group wasn't merely about venturing into an emotional landscape, it was about painting a common tapestry of healing that might inspire courage in others just as Emily had inspired him. "There's something I need to share with the group," he said suddenly, a new determination lacing his voice. "I want to start by recounting some of my experiences, but I also want to create a safe space for others to reveal their own stories." Emily beamed at him, her pride and encouragement palpable. "That sounds perfect, Jack. You've got this." In that moment, his purpose crystallized. By diving into the depths of his own grief and imperfections, he could pave the way for others. Authenticity was the key, and perhaps, in sharing his vulnerabilities, he would illuminate pathways for healing. As they dove deeper into conversation, Jack felt a rush of anticipation fill the air. Each word exchanged caused the barriers he had erected to tremble gently, a weight lifted from his heart. The impending gathering no longer felt like an arena for judgment but rather a chance to foster connection through shared stories. With newfound resolve, Jack glanced toward the door, the looming meeting now filled with potential instead of dread. What awaited him inside was not just a confrontation with his past, but a powerful transformation that could catalyze his growth and that of others. But deep down, beneath the swirling hope was an undercurrent of nagging doubt. Could he truly guide others to healing while navigating the labyrinth of his unresolved emotions? The lingering uncertainty loomed over him like a storm cloud, heralding challenges yet to come. As he and Emily shared laughter and memories that evening, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the real work was only just beginning. What revelations would emerge when the meeting commenced? Would he find clarity, or plunge into even deeper turmoil. The clock was ticking, and with it, the momentum surged forward, coaxing Jack to confront not just his own fears but also the shadows surrounding the crossroads of healing. As Jack paced in his small, unadorned office the next afternoon, he felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. The meeting was only hours away, and each passing moment amplified the cacophony of thoughts swirling in his mind. He decommitted to being transparent with the group, yet that commitment ignited a flame of anxiety that threatened to engulf his resolve. Could he truly bear the responsibility of being a guide when he was still grappling with the echoes of his past? His fingers drummed on the desk in a nervous rhythm, punctuating the silence as doubts flared. What if his memories of loss, a mother taken too soon, comrades lost to conflicts, would only weigh others down rather than lift them up? The clock on the wall ticked incessantly, counting down the minutes until he would stand before a room of strangers, each carrying their own burdens. Could he somehow transform the pain of his experiences into a beacon of hope? As he leaned back in his chair, he couldn't help but replay Emily's words, "Your honesty and vulnerability might resonate more than you realize." A rush of warmth flooded his chest at the thought, yet that warmth battled fiercely against the chill of regret and fear. He'd seen how crippling grief could be. He knew it intimately. But would baring his soul truly help others? The thought of revisiting those memories made his stomach churn. Jack took a deep breath, trying to center himself. Maybe a different approach was necessary. He needed to commit to a new mindset, one that transformed fear into courage. Every step he took into that room could not just affect his journey, but could ripple outward, igniting small fires of healing among those who shared the space with him. An image flashed in his mind, the soldiers he had led, each one dealing with a distinct reality of pain and grief. He remembered the camaraderie, how their shared vulnerabilities became vessels for strength. Perhaps his own struggles could serve the same purpose. He grabbed a notepad and began writing furiously, outlining a potential structure for the meeting. Rather than starting with his story, what if he initiated a conversation? An icebreaker that encouraged everyone to share their experiences in a supportive environment might create the vulnerable atmosphere needed for genuine connection. This could turn a mere meeting into a sanctuary. Jack's pen danced across the page as ideas flowed. Questions to stimulate thought. Prompts to evoke feelings. Each stroke resonated with promises of compassion and understanding. The more he wrote, the more he realized that while he carried scars, he also possessed tools, empathy, insight, and a fierce determination to connect. There was electricity in his chest, the thrill of realization. Maybe, just maybe, he could foster an environment where collective healing transcended individual struggles. This was no longer solely about him, this was about them, the shared journey, anchoring one another in the tempest of sorrow. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Mrs. Hargrove stepped in, her eyes sparkling with an energy that invigorated the room. "You look awfully busy in here, Jack. Ready for tonight?" "More than ready," he replied, a hint of excitement tinging his voice as the worry began melting away. "I've got some ideas about how to kick things off." Her face lit up in a supportive smile. "I knew you would. Your heart is in the right place, Jack. Just remember, vulnerability can bridge gaps you never thought possible." As she spoke, Jack felt a shift. He wasn't alone in this endeavor. The weight of leadership morphed from a burden into a shared responsibility. He was empowered, bolstered by the knowledge that they were collaborating on something meaningful. The door swung shut as she left, and he took a moment to gather himself. Soon, he would be stepping into the unknown, but it wouldn't solely be his burden to bear. He gathered his notes, each page now filled with purposeful intent. Jack left the office, each step toward the meeting room a synchronization of hope and purpose. As he ventured down the hall, he reminded himself that the truth he uncovered about his own grief might illuminate paths for others yet who would stand beside him on this journey. The uncertainty loomed once more as he approached the meeting room, the whispers of past fears whispering temptations of retreat. Tonight might be the night everything changed, but would he be ready to face whatever truths awaited him? As Jack stood outside the meeting room, he could feel a mix of anticipation and dread coursing through him. His heart raced, each beat echoing the gravity of the moment. He gathered his thoughts, recalling the structure he had planned. Engaging others, fostering an environment of shared vulnerability, these were his guiding principles. Yet, as he opened the door, they seemed to flutter, momentarily escaping his grasp. The room was filled with unfamiliar faces, some drawn tight with anxiety, others softened by curiosity. Jack took a deep breath, allowing a purposeful calm to wash over him. It was time to transition from the quiet turmoil inside him to a catalyst of inspiration. He stepped forward, clearing his throat to capture their attention. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "Tonight, we're here not only as individuals but as part of something larger, a collective journey through our shared struggles." He paused, scanning the participants. "I want this to be a space where we can be open about our experiences. Who we are, what we've lived through. This is both our burden and our strength." A rustle of movements and shifting expressions swept through the group, unease and curiosity mingled in the air. Jack sensed the gravitational pull of their unspoken stories, an intricate tapestry woven with threads of grief and resilience. He invited the group to break the ice. He urged them to share, to vocalize what brought them here, asking, "What's one experience you carry that informs who you are today?" The initial responses were tentative, but as individuals spoke, their vulnerability brightened the room. Jack felt a swell of connection burgeon with each story shared. A man recalled the loss of a friend in battle, a woman spoke of isolation after her mother's death, and another shared how the scars of past addiction still echoed in the dark corners of her mind. With each shared burden came muted nods and murmurs of understanding. They were reclaiming their truths. Yet with every personal revelation, a flicker of Jack's own memories emerged, tugging at his resolve. His hands twitched, compelling him to interject, to draw from his well of pain and analogize it to their narratives. But he hesitated, battling that insistent inner voice which warned that exposing his own grief might strip away the validation they sought. What if his experiences overshadowed theirs? As the night progressed, Jack found himself filled with the urge to connect deeper, pushing aside his trepidations. "I understand what it's like to feel lost," he said, surprising even himself with the words flowing out. "I've faced my own loss, people I loved, moments I cherished. Sometimes it feels insurmountable. But each time I stood up after falling, someone was there. That's where we find strength in each other." He saw a shift in the group, the realization washing over them like rippling waves. Recognition of shared humanity anchored their conversations. This wasn't merely a therapeutic session, it became a sacred exchange, a deliberate intermingling of grief and hope. But even as Jack fostered this dialogue, waves of self-doubt ebbed and flowed beneath the surface. Had he gone too far? Did his own struggles invalidate theirs? The thought knotted his stomach. Would he truly find the strength to lead this group forward if they gazed at him as an example? The evening concluded with a stronger sense of unity forged in the fires of vulnerability. As the last participant departed, Jack lingered, grappling with his own conflicted feelings about what had transpired. Had he truly opened avenues for others to heal, or had he unwittingly diluted their powerful moments with hints of his own narrative? Jack's mind raced as he made his way home, swirling questions entangling his thoughts. He felt a restlessness deep within, ignited by continuity, the urge to delve deeper into who he was meant to be for himself and others. What if this was merely the beginning of self-discovery? What if truly stepping into leadership required confronting not only the shadows of his past but also unearthing latent strengths he had never acknowledged? As the night deepened, he pondered his path forward, a fragile line separating doubt from determination. The real question lingered: could he harness the courage to explore not only who he was now but who he could still become? And with that thought, he felt the tide of inspiration rise again. A challenging road lay ahead, promising both discovery and revelation. The next chapter of his journey was calling, and Jack was determined to answer. The soft hum of dawn slipped through the window as Jack awoke, the daylight teasing at the edges of his dreams. Memories of the night before clung to him like a thin veil, haunting yet strangely motivating. He had stepped into vulnerability and awoken feelings he thought long buried. Today would not just be another day, it would be the beginning of a deeper journey, both to confront his truths and to embrace the leader he wished to become. As he prepared for the day, a determined rhythm settled within him. He made a cup of coffee, letting the bitter scent awaken his senses. Today, he would revisit the venue where he had facilitated the session. He needed to solidify the connections forged over shared stories and drill deeper into the experience. Upon arrival, the room was still and quiet, the remnants of last night's emotion hanging in the air. Jack rearranged chairs and updated his notes, crafting questions that could usher deeper exploration into the group's psyche. Was he ready to revisit his own stories? He understood the necessity of authenticity, yet he felt the cold grip of anxiety clutching his heart. But the potential for growth outweighed his fear. The participants trickled in slowly, a mix of familiar faces and new arrivals. As he welcomed them, the warmth of shared purpose ignited again. He was prepared to navigate them through another layer of emotion. "I want to thank you all for returning," he began, sensing the transformative energy building. "Tonight, I'd like us to focus on how our past informs our present, but also how it doesn't have to define our future. I'd like to hear what you envision for yourself moving forward. What do you want to unearth within yourself?" The dialogue was rich as they shared hopes and fears, and Jack guided them with gentle nudges, revealing aspects of themselves they were eager to explore. One woman dreamed of pursuing art despite her grief, while a man spoke of his passion for mentoring young people, despite his struggles with insecurity. As they delved into their futures, Jack was flooded with an urge to share more of his own narrative, the fragments he kept closed behind emotional walls. Every unspooled memory felt as if it could serve as a lesson or a bridge for others, yet doubt still loomed large. "Sometimes we need to redefine ourselves based on our true desires and strengths," he said, encouragingly. His heart raced as the words left his lips. "For me, stepping into leadership wasn't about having it all figured out, it was about embracing my scars and using them to help others." His eyes scanned the room, searching for signs of understanding. Then, in a moment that felt seismic, Jack decided to peel back a layer. "I lost my brother years ago, in a situation one that I believed would swallow me whole. I didn't understand then that loss could be a teacher rather than just a shadow." The silence was profound, a palpable shift in energy as the group turned towards him. "This isn't just my burden to carry, it's a piece of the landscape we all navigate." With that admission, he felt an unexpected connection spring to life, a collective sigh of sorts. Vulnerability surveyed the scene, and he saw openness flickering in their eyes. As they reflected on his words, their conversations transformed. Inspired by Jack's courage to connect his struggles with aspirations, they began to share more openly, revealing not just pain but hope. The walls of doubt that had shadowed Jack's own heart began to dissolve amidst shared laughter and tears. At the session's conclusion, the participants lingered, exchanging stories and contact information. Jack found himself enveloped in a sense of fulfillment richer than anything he'd felt before. He had transcended his internal cage, the freedom in sharing raw truths became a symbol of strength. Yet just as he felt a surge of accomplishment, a weight settled into his stomach, a reminder of the lingering shadows of unresolved grief. He pondered whether his small confession had truly impacted anyone or if it had merely highlighted his own insecurity. As he left the meeting room, a thought formed with a stark clarity: he needed to confront the ghosts of his past head-on, to understand their lingering hold. What if the key to unlocking an even greater potential lay in coming to terms with all that he had lost? Jack felt a stirring in his gut as realization washed over him. The next step loomed ahead, and with it, a revelation that could fracture his current stability. The inner struggles and unexamined truths were waiting to be faced. The time had come to confront the raw, unfiltered version of himself. Jack stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection that had transformed over the past weeks. The weariness in his eyes had shifted to a brightness filled with determination. By choosing vulnerability and confronting his past, he had catalyzed not only his own healing but also fostered profound connections within the community. The last few weeks had unfolded like a tapestry, each thread intricately interwoven with another's story of grief and resilience. Now, Jack felt solid confidence emanating from him, anchored by the recognition that personal growth was not merely a solitary journey. He had shown the community that addressing their shared pain could generate a surge of hope, but now it was time to cement this newfound strength into something more tangible. In the days following the last meeting, various individuals from the community had come forward, inspired by Jack's example. They expressed their desire to take collective actions toward healing. No longer were their stories individual burdens but rather shared experiences, creating a ripple effect of accountability. Intrigued by the synergy of their vulnerabilities and ambitions, Jack had realized the need to transition from these intimate sessions to structured support programs that would further engage the neighborhood. He could now envision a series of workshops opening up focused on skill sharing, storytelling, and emotional support, each designed to deepen connections and instill shared respect within the community. With every conversation held over steaming cups of coffee, with every shared moment of laughter amidst pain, they had collectively built not just a service, but a lifeline. On this particular morning, Jack found himself seated across from Mrs. Hargrove at the local cafe. Their discussions had gradually evolved, dedicating time to constructing meeting agendas filled with a spectrum of topics. As they bounced ideas off one another, Jack felt an underlying current of exhilaration churning within him, the thrill of pursuing a vision grounded in connection. "Jack," Mrs. Hargrove said, her tone radiating enthusiasm. "What if we hold an event at the community center to introduce these workshops? It could draw in more people who are quietly struggling. It might be the bridge they need." Jack's heart raced. The idea ignited a sense of purpose that spilled into the space around them. Yes. An open house to showcase the variety of programs, art, mentorship, and even pet therapy. He envisioned families gathering, sharing smiles, collective celebrations, and gentle healing. "I think people need to see that they aren't alone. We're stitching together a fabric of support that they can lean on." His eyes sparkled with newfound energy. As they finalized their plans, Jack flooded with pride, emerging as a leader, a role he hadn't known he could fulfill until recently. They worked late into the evening, drafting plans that would serve as both an invitation to others and a testament to their shared growth. Jack had cultivated a solid network of relationships, transforming the overwhelming uncertainties of his past into a beacon guiding his present. The day of the community event arrived, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Banners hung proudly in the center, proclaiming, "Together we rise." The warm evening light bathed the gathering crowd, and Jack, surrounded by supportive faces, felt grounded in the collective energy surrounding him. This event was not only a showcase of their journeys but a celebration of courage and redemption. As Jack stood up to speak, he felt a wave of emotions wash over him. The faces before him, their smiles, their wariness spurred him on. "Thank you for being here today," he began, the sound of his voice steady and assured. "We're here not just to address our struggles, but to create hope and connection. Each of you carries a unique story, and together we weave a tapestry of healing." He noticed the glimmer of recognition on many faces, a realization that they were not alone. Jack shared snippets of his personal story, yet positioned it not as a crutch but as an invitation for others to share their pain. Gradually, stories began to fill the air, laughter erupted over shared memories, and the collective support manifested in a profound connection. As the event unfolded, each workshop came to life, illuminating passions in ways Jack had only dreamed. Art became a healing mechanism, mentorship instilled purpose, and stories transformed into pathways for understanding. The children, families, and neighbors connected through shared experiences. The isolating burdens of grief were met with confidence and innovation. Jack had tapped into something that transcended his own past. Here lay the genesis of a community rekindled. In the weeks that followed, Jack witnessed irreversible change ripple throughout Cedar Valley. New friendships forged in workshop spaces, collaborative events blossoming, and the spirit of accountability transformed the very fabric of their lives. Jack stood proud in his role, not as a lone warrior but as a part of a powerful whole, a leader who had evolved into a vibrant member of the community. With the unwavering support of his neighbors and newfound recognition of his own yearning for connection, Jack had sailed beyond the strife of his past. He had established his position through pure transformation, not only as a mentor and facilitator but as someone reclaimed from the shadows of his former self. The ghosts that once haunted him began retreating as he embraced the vibrant collective of grief, strength, and hope around him. Closing the door to his past and opening the door to his future had led him here, a realization of profound personal and collective growth. Jack Reynolds accomplished more than he could have imagined. He had embraced his journey, renewed ties with others, and learned that healing was not just one person's burden but a shared endeavor leading to fulfillment. He took a deep breath, stepping into the vibrant uncertainty ahead, not in fear, but in a solid confidence built upon the stories and connections of everyone gathered at Cedar Valley. Become part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this powerful narrative. Comment your reactions and theories about this life-changing conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative finale. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the significance.